Elaine, thank you for being here today. You're one of my favorite people to talk to about, well, everything, including the HR industry. Sometimes we talk about the HR industry, sometimes we talk about everything else. Speaking to you from lovely Mexico City today, very lucky to be here. Yeah, it's an incredible city. And, we could talk about a million things, but I think today we thought we would dive into the conversation of how HR can sort of take this interesting moment in time to drive the company as opposed to just driving HR themselves. Before we jump into that, I should say, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your august background, give you all the bona fides for answering the question. We can start there. So,
Sure. Elaine Davis, my current assignment is I'm the Chief HR Officer for Motive Health, which is a health plan company offering level funded and self-funded products across 8 or 9 states. And before that, I was Chief HR Officer of Health Comp, which at the time was the largest independent TPA in the country. It's now called Personify Health after an acquisition. I did another turn as a CHRO in the call center industry, BPO. And then before that, I worked at some really big companies, Xerox and GlaxoSmithKline. But I think the hallmark of my career has been an intense interest in HR technology. So in every role I've had, I've either built HR technology that did not exist, or I worked with external parties, people in their garages, literally, to
mhm.
help them build tools that needed to be built and that I had an immediate need for. A good example was at Glaxo. I met a couple guys in Raleigh, North Carolina, that were interested in figuring out if they could build a tool that would crawl across the web and look for candidates for difficult to find jobs. And I said, yes, please, that would be me. I need that now. So we funded them and worked with them to build a product, and it's still in existence today. And this was, in the early 2000s. So I love to work on HR technology projects, and I'm always looking for ways to bring HR technology into every job I've ever had.
Sure.
So Neil and I met, and we connected on kind of, I think, that level initially.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that you said to me early on was you didn't think of yourself, and maybe paraphrasing, so much as someone in HR, as you thought of yourself as a problem solver that was really interested in IT and technology for solving those problems. And I'm always amazed at how um, sort of innovative and aggressive you are about just going and finding the way to solve a problem that you want to solve. I think it's a really important nucleus to the conversation today about a frame that you describe yourself in. I don't think a lot of other people in HR describe themselves in. It's just a rethink of how to approach the problem. So, where did that come from? Did you earlier on? Did you just fall in love with technology, or did you fall in love with actually solving the problem?
I mean, I did a master's degree in computer science at Cal at
Okay,
Berkeley
there you
because
go.
I didn't really know.
Yeah, I didn't
I
know
had
that
a
actually.
yeah, I had a political science undergraduate degree at Berkeley because I was supposed to go to law school because that's what my dad told me I needed to do. But when it came down to it, I didn't want to go to law school. Uh, so I had to figure out something else to do and fund it myself. Which is fine. Um, so I think I've just always had an interest in technology. I'm no kind of great coder and never was. I just was always interested in applying technology to solve problems. I also didn't want to be in HR. I not only didn't want to be a lawyer, I never thought I'd be an HR person. I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Yeah.
I don't particularly like people. So I wanted to be a vet, and I specifically wanted to be a horse vet because I loved horses, and I still
Uh,
do. And my dad said, "Well, there's no way I'm going to pay for vet school. You need to go to medical school." Uh,
I can't wait to put that. That's the cold open of this one. Is I don't like people.
I don't
So
like people. So I started my career in in the HR technology, in an HR technology role at Bank of America. And it's a big bank, right? Huge bank, and trying to figure out ways to manage a 65, 75,000 person workforce efficiently, right? And so I just started, that's where I started. And as I grew, I developed my technology competence, which is very limited. I mean, yes, I have a master's degree, but that doesn't do anything for you. It's just a credential. It doesn't do anything. But as I developed my technical competence, I sort of slopped over into the actual business piece of it. Yes, I can build an open enrollment module that, gets people enrolled in the right benefits at Bank of America. But as I would look at it, I think, well, that doesn't look right. Why are we offering this benefit and not that benefit? And how can we have this threshold and not that threshold? So I quickly, over the course of my career, was able to fold some functions under me. So I would have the HRIS, and I'd have benefits, and I'd have comp, let's say, for Glaxo. And so that part of my world just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And something I always learned, and I think it's because I'm the daughter of immigrants, and the first person to go to college, was never say no when they give you more work. When they give you more work, just do it. It's a privilege. So every time they'd give me another assignment, I'd say, okay, and I would just keep going. So I think that's really how I got into HR, was through the technology door,
Yeah.
right? And just grew from there.
I mean, I imagine that HR's relationship with other parts of the organization has changed a lot over time. From the outside in, so I from a technology background, I've been building technology companies my whole life, and I've in the process engaged with HR that I've built my own teams, other people. One of the things that I found is really interesting is that HR, I think in many cases, has found themselves in this sort of weirdly detente situation with IT, where they kind of like have a hard time like asking for things, getting things done, and it's sort of a funny relationship where they almost are feel like they have to get permission to go and solve problems sometimes, because IT technology is how you solve them. But has it always sort of been that way? I mean, I feel like these two functions have grown up in the modern age of corporations into kind of some weird relationships.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, I think that HR and tech, for me, my personal journey has been that HR and technology, you can't separate them. You have to be in lockstep. And you know me a little bit, and I'm not a shy person. And I was recently at a very small conference talking about how CHROs can work within their organization to deliver more cost-effective health benefits with great outcomes, right? With great patient outcomes. And I got a lot of pushback about, well, the HR doesn't have the power, and HR this and HR that. And I said, I totally reject that notion. And I reject it not just in the healthcare arena, but just in working within any organization. The number one, the first thing on the P&L is salary. The second thing in the US on the P&L is US medical expense. Who controls those two lines? The CHRO. Don't tell me you don't have leverage. Don't tell me you don't have power in an organization.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of HR people sort of wait for everybody else to be served, and then they go get their plate. And I understand that mentality. It's sort of a military mentality. The officers wait while the servicemen are eating, but that's not a leadership trait that is helpful in a corporation. You If you come in with the mindset that you're open to using technology for doing everything, and you can demonstrate that it returns profitability to the business, and well, I guess I should back up. The other secret that I have, it's not really a secret, is that I always, when I enter a new company, I make best friends with the CFO and the CIO. Those are my two go-tos. I'm not a quant jock, so when I cost things out and try to work through some numbers, I always go directly to CFO and say, help me understand how I can model this in a way that I can get it past our board.
Yeah, interesting.
And then I always go to the CIO. It's like the first person I want to meet is the CIO and say, how can we work together to drive our profitability?
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about this, Neil. There's a couple things. I went back after you asked me to do this. I thought, well, what are we going to talk about that, people might glean something from? And I went back to an article I read several months ago. It was in Forbes, and it talked about what HR needs to do to drive AI throughout the workforce and throughout the business. And one of the things that I'd forgotten that was in this article is that women are much less likely to use AI than men are. And women are also much less likely to use chatbots and uh, Gibbity, like we like to call it chat Gibbity, than
Yeah.
men are.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
the supposition is that women are much more concerned about the negative effects of privacy or any intrusion into privacy. That they're more concerned with that than men are. That's the supposition. I don't know if it's true.
Interesting.
So, because women are disproportionately in HR and in leadership roles in HR, that has to be having if there really is a gender gap in AI, that's got to be part of the issue is why we don't see HR leaders grasping a hold of AI and really driving it in their organization. So I wanted to bring that up because I think that's a really important point, right? Um, yeah.
It is, and I want to talk about that a little bit more, but I want to go back to the point about the CFO and the CIO relationships. You know, to me, the way I interpret what you're saying is that you came at the problem to say not as sort of HR as an expense thinking, but HR as you use the word profitability, right? So I see a lot of people fall into the trap of you know just looking at the world through like what can I get done because HR is nothing but an expense. So like what's the most that I will be allowed to spend kind of thing, as opposed to trying to reframe it into like you said the biggest line item is salary and you have a huge lever related to that as the head of HR. Other than just intrinsically feeling like that is true and acting from that position, like how do you approach like creating those conversations? Maybe did you have an interaction with a CIO or CFO who just didn't believe HR was anything other than an expense, and how did you change his or her opinion about that?
Um, I do think there's something to be said for having a certain amount of personal credibility that gets you so the CFO will actually sit down and speak to you and listen to you. I believe that you have to learn the lexicon of your colleagues. You can't speak HR speak to your CFO or to your CIO. You have to learn their language. You know that I'm a little bit obsessed with dogs, and I have a dog that I actually imported her from Europe. It's ridiculous, but I did. And I'm teaching her a variety of things. I'm teaching her a vocabulary, and I'm teaching her a bunch of things. But it struck me recently, why am I teaching her my language? I should be learning her language. How can I do that? So I think about lexicon a lot. So when I visit with a CFO, I typically will come in with a slate of numbers that describe the workforce. I don't show up with, hey, I want to add pet insurance as a benefit this year. What do you think? I don't do that. I
Yeah.
come in with I come with facts and data and um, kind of a model of a money model that shows what we're spending and what I want to spend and where I think I can uh, where I think this money would be well spent and provide value. So, for example, my last job at Health Comp, I spent a lot of time trying to combine 7 or 8 different companies and put them all under one benefit structure. Everything from healthcare to 401k, blah, blah, blah. It was a huge undertaking. And I also wanted to improve some of the benefits, right? I wanted to make bigger contributions from the employer side. And I knew if I had just gone in and said, well, I really think our people deserve, and our competitors are doing this and that, I would have just been blown out of the room. So what I learned to do, I learned to monetize everything, put everything, quantify everything, and I was able to show. I was able to save about $12 million dollars in U.S. healthcare costs, and I was able to return all of that back to the CFO, except I withheld like $3 million. And I was able to phrase that in a way that he could see that I was giving up a lot more, giving back a lot more than I was taking. And I was able to improve our 401k match pretty dramatically just using $3 million. It's not that much money. But I always ask my finance people to do all the math for me so that when I go to the CFO, I know the math is right.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't have to worry that, I made a mistake in the numbers or in the calculations. And when I go to the board, I got the CFO who's already signed off. So really,
Yeah.
it's more strategy than knowledge, right? Just
I mean, it sounds similar to me as the way that CEOs operate, right? They think of everybody as, members of their team that are specialists that are good at doing things. And, it's an influence game of getting to the end goal, right?
yes.
In the early days of startup land, which I'm from, it's a high, if you are into like disc assessments, right? It's all high D, right? It's all decision making. It's all drive, 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 drive. And then once you get into 15 people or more, all of a sudden the whole game becomes influence, and that's true until you have thousands of people. But what I'm hearing is that you sort of look at the players on the field as members of your team, if you will. Some to collaborate with, some to frankly delegate with, and sometimes people feel special when they're delegated to, even if they're doing their own job, right? To drive like a CEO like business case through, where you're not just doing it because it's self-serving or it's on your roadmap or you have to deliver, but you're actually thinking through all the different dimensions of it. Um, and so much of this to me is always, especially when talking to you, is about thinking of yourself perhaps differently or more capable than the role job description would necessarily like obviously allow. I think it's a huge differentiator between how you approach the problem and how other people I've talked to think about how they can maneuver in HR. They put themselves in a box first and like think about where they can move in the box as opposed to just saying the
There is
box.
no box. There's no box. You can't, if you are the CHRO, the entire company is your box. There is no HR box.
Yeah,
Because you're controlling the salary line and you're controlling the benefits line, you have access, you have free play. There are
yeah,
no lanes. And but I would say this, you do have to demonstrate some credibility in the HR function. I mean, I wasn't able to bust out and do whatever I wanted at other companies until I had HR, the basic blocking and tackling humming. But the secret to that is to find wonderful people and bring them with you and turn them loose and make sure they're doing what they need to do, and then you can kind of stray into other um, areas of the company to make an impact. I never thought of myself as an HR person. It always became a surprise to me that people called me an HR person. But it doesn't even, it is what it is. And I play various
right.
roles in a company, but I've also been around a long time, so I've developed a certain level of competence and credibility. So easy for me to say now. At the time, it was probably more difficult to do than I can remember.
I mean, it's funny because your kind of journey is sort of similar to my journey as an entrepreneur, right? I mean, I'm getting on in the years, so I've been at this for a long time. I started at the end of the 90s when entrepreneurship was like almost like calling, if you told your parents you were going to be an entrepreneur, you might as well told them you were going to be like an artist. They were like, oh, please don't, right?
You'll
Like
starve.
I don't need to write you checks every month. You'll starve, right? And I remember talking to, for example, like my grandfather, and he just couldn't understand how any buddy would give me that chance. They would give me money. Why would they do that? How would they give me money without me being responsible for paying it back? It just was like he thought of the world as a box because that's how he grew up, right? And entrepreneurship was a by definition role where you took yourself out of the box and said no, like the world is a playing field. That's matured a huge amount now, right? Where there's now these playbooks for how to go straight from whatever your high school, pre-high school, dorm room straight into entrepreneurship now. But I think one of the things that's so fascinating about kind of this moment in time is that everybody is sort of on an even playing field again. And so in terms of creating credibility, I think it's been hard for, HR, leaders to try to get up to speed in terms of like feeling confident and competent in terms of technology, right? Technology is incredibly deep. There's a lot to know when you get into security, things like that. But all of a sudden, there's just been this great tidal wave that's just washed everything away, and now we're all sitting in the same playing field. And I'm surprised at how little advantage HR leaders are taking of this moment, understanding the point that you're making, which is whoever has the most credibility gets to make the most decisions right now. We sell into HR teams that inevitably work with IT teams, and I don't mean this like pejoratively. I just mean it's the sign of the times. The IT teams have no idea what they're doing. No one has implemented AI projects yet, right? Doesn't mean they're incompetent. They just nobody, literally nobody has an idea because they haven't done it yet. So sometimes what happens is the HR team is one of the first people to bring an AI project to the IT team because it's so well designed for the type of work that HR does. Like you can't not pay attention to it. A data analytics team, maybe within 12 months is going to be talking to IT about what they want to do with AI. But right now, the HR teams are going there and running into this issue where the IT teams haven't even figured out how to approve software yet. That's not a bad thing. That's an opportunity, in my view. But I don't think a lot of people are viewing it that way yet because of this box and this frame that they've allowed themselves to be, put into over the last 20 years of how the role evolved.
I've been thinking about how you could encourage, how the HR profession could take some baby steps into AI, right? And I went back to a cornerstone of HR function, which is building a job family. A job family architecture is how an organization describes how people are organized, how people and work are organized within the organization itself. If you typically people don't start building a job family architecture when they're a startup. Several years in, they realize, oh gosh, I need a way to describe what people are doing, market price. I have to have a way of explaining what people do that is fairly consistent across my industry and across these types of jobs. So I know whether or not I'm paying people correctly so that I can recruit people into roles that make sense. It's very typical, particularly in startups and small companies, that everybody does everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the jobs are fractionalized. People are doing stuff off the side of their desks until you get to a point where you really need to scale or your purchase or something happens and you've got to bring some order to the chaos, right? So that for me, job family architecture is a fundamental foundational plank of organization design. I don't mean OD mumbo jumbo, INTJs. I don't mean any of that stuff. I mean, how do we describe what this organization does and who does what and how we value that, meaning how we pay it and what the relationship is between all these jobs and how it's really just building an org chart, but in extreme detail, right? So like the role, the company I'm in now, we are a health insurance company and a payer of insurance claims for people that are self-funded. So we have a lot of claims processors. We have a lot of people that try to figure out eligibility. Until I got there, they didn't have a job family, but now they do. But the step that I should be taking, and I will, is to go through that job family architecture and assign certain jobs to AI agents, not people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is a really
That's interesting.
simple way to get an HR function thinking about where does AI fit in my broad organization. Do you remember when we first met? I asked you, are you building something for HR or are you building something for the people in the company?
Right. Yeah.
Right? To me,
Yeah.
this is a very similar thought, right? So I built a job family architecture for Motive, but I missed a step. So I'm going back and I'm going to tag the jobs that I think can be fully AI or hybrid AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to publish that and say, hey, we may not be there today, but these jobs should be fully AI in 2 years, 1 year, 6 months. I don't know, but I'm at least going
Yeah.
to tag it because then when people look at it, they'll go, oh,
Yep.
okay, right? So will it put a few people off that are in those jobs today? Yes,
Yeah.
it will, but that's reality.
I saw an interesting a LinkedIn post. Aaron Levy, the CEO of Box, reposted something. It was a talk someone did, and they were making a really interesting distinction about kind of like the three places that AI fits. One is sort of like fully automated, like so what you just said, like this job should just be done by AI. One was augmented, right? So the human is basically the human is assisting in collaboration with the AI constantly. I think of those things as sort of like workflows where the AI is pushing, and every once in a while the human has to come in and review something and like keep moving along. And then there's I don't have a great word for it, but the one where we're doing the work, but AI is just making us more efficient, right? And I thought that was interesting, and maybe to put into your framework of job families is like not everything is like who am I who is a bullseye on them, right? Because AI is going to take that. But how does like which job fits into which of these categories, right? So, for example,
Yeah.
our product, at Winslow, we very much believe that like most of it will actually be the first category, where you have an HR team who just does a lot of things during the day, and some of those things will be automated away, but most of them will be just done much more efficiently, right? Something that took 4 hours to do takes 4 seconds to do, right? That's different than got a bullseye on the head of HR and we're trying to get rid of this person, or we're trying to build out an HR specialist and a benefits specialist and a payroll person as an AI. I don't actually think that everything ends up that way. I think most stuff probably is in category one or two, and then some things are just fully automated, for sure. But I think it's interesting in that framework to sort of like think of it that way a little bit. Because I think it makes people feel less insecure about
Yeah.
like that it's
Vulnerable.
black and white. Either you're gone or you're not. I think it's more interesting to think if you're more powerful, right, than you were before. But also, I have a kind of a tactical equivalent of that I just kind of like wrote something up about where I've been doing this for myself and been taking like a task inventory, just like literally looking at my day and saying, what did I do today? Because I was thinking about when I was working with a dietitian, and their comment to me was like, right, make a food journal. And I was like, oh my god, a food journal! I don't want to do this. And I did it for 4 days, and shocking. Guess what? I was like, oh my gosh! Like you just see all this stuff when you write it all down. You look at it holistically. Wow, I'm having too much dairy. Oh, wow, I snack all day. Like all these things that, like, as a human, we're very happy to just like push underneath the rug. It's the same thing from a task perspective when you actually sit down and look at what you do from whatever 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. whatever your day is. You start writing it all down over the course of a week, and then you do this across your team. It starts to reveal these places where these three categories, like call them amplify, assisted, and then automated, right? I forgot my three A's. Starts to become interesting and powerful. So my point there being that I think you can do it at a more microscopic, tactical level, and then a more strategic level, which you're talking about from an org design.
Yeah, and I think it begs the question though. Let's say you go through the job family and you assign tags, take the three A's and you assign tags to things. Then the question is, so what? What does it mean for the people who are
Yeah.
going to be fully automated? So that's the opportunity, I think. And in several conversations with you, or maybe some writings that you had done, you talked about what are the new jobs that AI will create for us, and really it's around content creation, I think. So we typically in HR we don't we kind of short shrift the content because it's easier to explain something to somebody live than it is to write it down in a way that everybody in your organization can understand it, right? It's really hard. I mean, I've written a lot of policies and a lot of employee manuals, and I've learned over the years to try to write in the most conversational style possible in the way that people in your organization talk. That's the only way. For example, dress code. I've often been asked to write dress codes. I think it's ridiculous, and I don't want to do it. So my version of a dress code is, this is years of refinement, Neil, is if you would wear it to a club, do not wear it to work. If you would wear it to have Sunday dinner with your grandmother, wear it to work. And that's my dress code. So I feel like I've kind of gone off on a tangent here, but but I think it begs the question: if you're in, we have to reskill and upskill certain workers. And I think what we haven't done enough of is try to understand what job opportunities AI will open up. We've made short, we don't do a good job writing policies and writing um, manuals, but that is going to be required if AI is going to work um, in the HR function in companies. We've got
Yeah.
to have better content. We've got to have librarians. We've got to have people that can write for the machines, not
Yeah.
for the humans. I don't know how to do that. So that's something that I need to learn.
Well, so I agree with you wholeheartedly. One of the things that we see is that people are starting to realize the quality of your content is equals the quality of your AI capability, right? So
Right.
your AI technology is only as smart as what it's got to work with. And so it puts HR teams back into the seat of writing more content. But I think there's sort of like a beautiful kind of like correlation to this, which is it's like you said it like you told me the story about an organization you worked for maybe 10 years ago or something. Like you showed up and like you just spent like the holiday writing all the policies one,
Yes.
which probably took you weeks. But so much of that writing, like you said, is because you know the human is the audience. You have to explain complex topics to people that are all different sort of like grades and experiences. But now you don't really need to do that as much. Like it's actually easier to produce tons of content if you know that the robots are the ones reading it, right? Like
Yes.
one of the things that we talk about a lot is how inevitably SharePoint, and the kind of the corporate internet will die a little bit. Not totally, but partially why it will die is because the amount of time, money, and energy that HR is putting into presentation, as opposed to just content, to try to make it pop off the screen and be engaging and have people want to read through all this kind of stuff, it's an incredible amount of time and energy. So it's a laborious task to create content in HR right now and policy and procedure. If that shifts to where 90% of the engagement from the employee around that kind of content is Q&A through conversational bots, not all of it will go away for sure, then you just don't need to care that much about it anymore, right? Like you don't need to do a beautiful graphic design page,
Right.
right, with insets and callouts and things like that. You see these incredible SharePoint sites now, and you're just like, there's no point in doing that anymore. So going back to the top in terms of our topic, right? Like it's this these transitions that HR leaders should be talking about, should be getting in front of, should be going into talking to the CFO and the CIO and saying like, look, this is the workforce I'm going to have in 5 years. This is what I have now. This is the workforce I'm going to have in 5 years. See how this is a bit different? And it's because I'm prepping our organization to be, to be working with AI, but also our organization to be a support system for the rest of how the organization will change as well. Like so, these things are not only true for HR, right? Sales is going to have to spend as much time and energy thinking about data organization and classification and cleansing and all this crazy stuff, right? As the HR will with their policies and procedures. But again, it's this tabula rasa right now, like waiting for the IT department to tell you what you are allowed to install and not. It's the
Yeah.
greatest wasted opportunity ever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Well, so I think there's a few things. I think HR professionals need to claim their leverage, claim their power. And I'm all about that and always have been. And then the second thing I think is if you don't know where to start, start with your job, start with how you describe the organization. Look at your organization, look at all your jobs, look at your career progressions, look at all the functions in your organization, the way they're described, and just take a stab at at saying which which of these will use HI or be replaced by HI. Just go ahead and label it. Just do it, and then think about what the organization looks like, as you say, in 2 or 3 years or 6 months. And then the third thing I think is start to learn how to write for the robot. I went through, as I said, I went through this evolution of writing policies and writing manuals, and then getting them tighter and tighter and smaller and really basic don't wear that to work, wear this, right? Very direct. So I now have to reframe or rethink about how I write because I want the robot to read it. I don't want humans to read it. They don't read it anyway.
Yeah.
I literally can tell you this, and anybody, any HR person in this country that's been through an open enrollment knows that nobody's reading anything because the first week in January, everybody goes crazy because they didn't realize when they signed up for this benefit or that benefit that it was this or that, or this doctor's not in the network. And leaving aside how complicated all this nonsense is for people, it's ridiculous. But nobody reads anything. So all the thousands of dollars we spend on open enrollment materials, like you said, the colors and the cutouts and the this and the that, nobody's reading it.
Yeah.
So we should just figure out a different way to get this information in people's hands. Write for the robot and let the robot tell the person what's the right selection for them.
Yeah. Come on in, robots. We're doors open. You're welcome. But I think, I mean, there's a million directions we could go with this, but I mean, I think it's so interesting to think about, like, the fact that all organizations are changing. And like, I don't hear this conversation coming very much from the people that we're talking to. They're very focused, for obvious reasons, on how do I become more efficient doing it the way that I'm doing it now. I think that's, I have this task, I have employees asking questions, I want to do that more efficiently. They haven't even started to think of like the next step, which is that AI sort of forces roles to collapse into each other because the payroll specialist can do a lot of the benefit specialist job if you have all very sophisticated tools now. So you don't need. There's this high level topic which is really interesting, which is the last 100 years has been a migration from generalization to specialization in the knowledge workforce. Like America has a very specialized knowledge workforce. AI is creating the opposite current where we are collapsing adjacent roles because AI is helping us do the jobs around us, right? A graphic designer is building
That's a good point.
software
Yeah.
development, software developers are doing testers jobs, all that kind of stuff. And so we're actually moving back towards generalization because AI allows us to do all the specialist tools, which is like a huge thing to think about in terms of how your workforce is going to evolve. You take that to a tactical level in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can look at an HR team with 7 benefit specialists and 4 payroll specialists. Like, you're going to compress those down to 2 or 3 benefit specialists maybe, but then some of those are just going to become like, HR policy specialists, right? They just understand how to like work with what you got.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through
Absolutely.
these successive steps, moving from specialization to generalization, again, which is going to really upend the job family framework and everything that you kind of think about because it's just it's like an interesting inversion of the direction we've been kind of quietly heading for 100 years. So
I'm going to have to think about that. That's a really good point. So we won't need as many specialists. We'll be more generalists because we're going to use the robots to do the the bulk of the work. I have to think about that. But
I mean, it's obviously like not a perfectly bright line, but you know
right.
the when I did some work a long time ago, helping build green data centers using geothermal energy inside of Iceland. And I spent a bunch of time standing up a company in Iceland and working with the government and all sorts of crazy stuff there. And one of the things that's fascinating about Iceland is it's a tiny country with a very robust technology and business climate, but there's just not enough people in Iceland to build a big company. So almost every company has 3 or 4 different competitors, but they also collaborate with them. And so Iceland is a country of generalists, out of necessity. They all have to do a lot of things. And so it's a funny model to take a look at, and it had worked very well until it had a huge crash, 10 years ago, but that was more a function of one person than anything. But like there are these different countries that have had to kind of operate this way for a long time. And so there's like things to be learned from talking to those people that are going to have an effect on the American workforce.
Huh. That's very interesting.
I am I'm going to actually, we're going to talk for a million years. I'm going to wrap us because the
Okay.
robots are at my door. My
I
family.
hear them. The mini robots, the mini robots.
Yes, the mini me robots are here, and they're going to come in for sure.
Sure.
We could talk for hours and hours. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us the
It
time.
was good. Yeah, I enjoyed it as always.
Okay,
Okay.
time to let the mini robots in.
Okay. Safe travels home.
Okay.
Bye.